What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from Zoom again, and this time we are here with Caitlyn of Eat Your Heart Out. It is so great to be able to talk with you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, anytime, anytime. As I said before we started rolling, your last album, Fluorescence, was awesome. I thought it was an incredible hidden gem, at least here in America, in the world of rock, kind of overlooked in 2019. But thank you so much for giving us some new music for 2022. We got Can't Stay Forever coming out on September, 2 days after my birthday, I might add. But was this just picking up where you left off after Fluorescence? Was this just like meant to be the appropriate follow up, or was this meant to kind of like signify a new beginning for Eat Your Heart Out in a way?
I think that pretty much every time we've made new music, like we've never really thought of it as necessarily a follow up to the release before. We definitely learned a lot from the Fluorescence, like the creating of Fluorescence and the recording, because it was really stressful. Because when we made that record, we'd never made an album before, I guess, and we didn't really know what went into making an album. So when we went in, we were sort of not prepared enough at all, and it ended up being quite stressful.
Is that your
In the
cat?
background.
That's awesome.
And yeah, so we definitely we took a lot away from the recording of Fluorescence, and we definitely said we're not going to do that again next time. Like, we're going to be more prepared, and sort of do more what we want to do as well, like not worry so much about creative input from other people. So yeah, I guess in that way it was a follow-up in the way that we learned a lot, but in terms of the actual record itself and like the music and the themes explored, it still sounds like Eat Your Heart Out. Like, it's not a radical departure, but I think we've just sort of tried to up our game in terms of our songwriting, and yeah, it's still Eat Your Heart Out. So I suppose it is a follow-up, but it is a new thing, yeah.
Would the first two singles that we got, Down and Sour, maybe serve as a good representation of what the entirety of Can't Stay Forever will sound like, or is there a lot more to be discovered?
I think that they serve as good general sort of like parameters of, like, there are heavier songs which Down kind of represents, and there are like more poppy songs, like poppier than we've sort of ever written, which I feel like Sour kind of represents that end as well. But there are definitely a couple of other things in there as well. Like, there's a track on there called Poison Devotion that is not like anything we've ever done before. Not to give too much away, I suppose, but rather than doing a stereotypical like acoustic track on the record, it's more of it's like an electronic sort of, almost like an interlude. So yeah, which we've never done anything like that before in any of our releases. So Down and Sour do represent majority of the songs pretty well and sort of where they go. But yeah, there's definitely a few other things on there that are a bit left of field.
Does it always start off with like a preconceived idea? Now I see the cat. This is awesome. I love the cat.
What are you doing?
That is.
Oh my goodness.
I love that. I'm not cropping that out either. I'm keeping that in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. You're in here now.
But being that you have two EPs out and two full-length albums out, do you almost does it ever start off with a preconceived idea in the songwriting, or does is there like a lot of improvising and a lot of experimentation involved? Yes, I was waiting for that.
Me too. Oh my goodness, he's so naughty. Go down there. So sorry, do the songs start with like a preconceived idea? Yeah, I think we kind of we have a really collaborative writing process. So all of the guys will contribute instrumental ideas. Like, we usually have a shared folder where things will just be uploaded as they're written. And then I'll sort of go through and, listen to them and see what connects with me and what I feel like I can write to. And then they sort of take shape from there. But I suppose the way that I write lyrics, I usually have some sort of idea of a topic or something, like, you know, even just a line or a word or something that I want to build the song around. So usually then when I'm listening to the instrumentals, something will sort of connect and I'll think, oh, that idea that I had would probably work pretty well with this. So yeah, I guess, yeah, we do, but also a lot of it's sort of done as we go. Like we've never really set out and said, we want to make a song or a record that sounds like this or, you know, does this. It kind of just always evolves as it goes.
Mm-hmm. And you kind of led me perfectly into the next question, because I wanted to ask about lyrics. You mentioned that you sometimes have stuff already written or maybe some ideas in mind. Could that maybe influence the sound of the music itself, like the way that the chord progression is let down, if this would be a faster song or a softer song?
Yeah, so generally, like, as I said, it'll start with an instrumental that I'll start to write vocals to, but that's usually only a small section, like it's not a whole song. So once the lyrics and the vocals start to take shape, a lot of the time, then the rest of the song is sort of built simultaneously. So yeah, a lot of the time then other parts of the song, like the bridge or the other verses, or even sometimes like the chorus will be reworked to sort of fit the vibe of the lyrics more. I'm trying to think of an example, but my brain isn't working very well. But yeah, so it definitely can influence it, because obviously you want it to be cohesive and like the lyrics and the instrumentation to work together and not be totally, you know, jarring and you know, not related to each other at all. So yeah.
Have you ever had like the best lyrics ever, but then they're always like one syllable over like the arrangements and they just can't fit? Like one thing that like Daydream, which is still like my favorite song in the Eat Your Heart Out catalog, and like I feel like if you're just one syllable off, that wouldn't work. The way that you have the sustained lyrics and you have the fast lyrics right after that, and then pull right into the sustained ones again. So.
Yes, definitely. That happens very frequently. There'll be like a specific word or something that I'm like, I really want to use this word, and it just won't fit. But I feel like, especially on this record, I remember a couple of times where I would have these lyrics and like I'd be showing our producer Jack some part that I'd written, and he'd be reading it and be like, I don't understand how this is going to fit into the melody that we were discussing. And then when I would sing it, he's like, I don't understand how you fit those syllables in there. Like, it doesn't make sense. So I guess, in a way, if you really want to get the syllable in there, you make it work somehow.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Absolutely. It's like, it's not going to fit. You're like, I'm going to make it fit. Like, it's...
Yeah, exactly. I'll make it fit.
Yeah, absolutely. And when it comes to like the lyrics, do you like to leave it open to interpretation, or do you maybe like have a certain message or maybe a goal to maybe get a listener to see things from your point of view, or to maybe sort of engage the listener into the meaning as much as the song itself?
This is definitely something that I think about a lot, and I feel like a lot of the lyrics up to this point have been like left kind of open so that, you know, people can listen to them and sort of apply them to their situation if they fit. I do sometimes think that I'd like to get better at writing more specific lyrics, because I think that that is like quite a skill, people that can really write specific lyrics about their situation and you know exactly what they're talking about, but they it's still like broad enough that you don't feel totally, you know, like disconnected when you listen. But I think that, yeah, with the lyrics, I always know exactly what situation I was thinking about when I was writing them. But I feel like a lot of the time they are sort of left more open-ended so that they could be applicable to a variety of situations. Like Down, for example, was me thinking about my relationship with social media and how toxic it can be, but you get sort of, you know, pulled back in. But then when you listen back, like that could be just about a human relationship, like a, you know, romantic relationship or something. So yeah, I guess it is open in that way that it's it is left kind of open-ended and it can be applicable. But I think, yeah, getting more specific would be a good skill to work on.
Well, what I find so unique is that, like, regardless of what the meaning of the song is, like, Heavy with Envy is, like, such a catchy song. Like, it makes me smile when I listen to it, but envy is really never a good feeling to have in a way. So, like, I feel like it is almost kind of like there's a lot of contrast between maybe the lyrics and the vocal style in itself. You have contrast in both your lyricism and your voice.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we like definitely noticed that before. Like a lot of the tracks will have sort of, darker or heavier subject matter in the lyrics, but they will still be kind of upbeat and have sound more positive, I suppose. Like the most recent song we released off Can't Say Forever, Sour. I feel like the lyrics in that are quite they're not all negative, but it is kind of it's not a happy song, but it's so upbeat and like poppy. So it kind of sounds happy. But then when you actually, read what the lyrics are saying, it's like, oh no, this is actually kind of darker. So yeah, I think we do that a lot where like the instrumentation stuff is a bit heavier but then the other way around. The instrumentation is, more upbeat, but the lyrics are a bit darker.
Well, I feel like there's times where even the instrumentation, like those are some heavy riffs on there. Like you could do death metal growls. I think I've even made a joke that if you got like the singer of In Flames on an Eat Your Heart Out song, it would go from pop punk to melodic death metal like that. So, I think.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I love that.
So I think is it fair to say that there are like that every member does have kind of like their own set of inspirations as well that translate into the music as well? Because even though it is for iTunes and Spotify purposes, pop punk in a way, I do see inspiration from other genres within the instrumentation as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think like all of us definitely listen to a lot of different stuff, but we all do listen to a lot of heavier music. And especially when we were starting out as a band and like playing our first shows and our first tours, there weren't really pop punk bands around where we were from. So we pretty much were raised and like cut our teeth with melodic hardcore bands and like, just like the hardcore scene in general was massive in our city at the time. And even like metal bands and stuff like that. So I feel like that influence definitely seeped in a bit because we kind of we were like, we can't just write these like, frilly pop punk riffs or otherwise they're just going to laugh us out of the venue like when we show up to open the show for these hardcore bands. So we were like, our music has to stand next to these sort of bands. So it kind of did just evolve into this like there are always heavier and like grungier sort of riffs in our music because that's what we enjoy. We like the way those kind of riffs feel to play live. Like we like the heavier songs in a live setting as well, so we always strive to have that sort of stuff there. Because it's just what we enjoy and what we sort of came up with, so yeah, it's definitely there.
As a diehard fan of My Chemical Romance, going to shows in the New York City hardcore scene, I could totally relate to that in so many ways. So like I know the feeling.
Not even just pop punk, I kind of feel like pop punk sort of, it's been around for a while, but like almost the alt rock sort of like I don't know, I feel like alt rock's kind of coming back in a big way, like even bands like Boston Manor and stuff as well in the UK, like absolutely leading that like very nostalgic but it's still so fresh like alt rock vibe, which I absolutely lived for. I love that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think there's been a resurgence of that very nostalgic sounding rock, which I absolutely love. Because I think everyone can sort of relate to it, but it is still fresh in the same way. So definitely. Yeah, it's cool to see the way that the music scene kind of, comes in waves in what's big and what's killing it. So yeah, I love to see the alt rock coming back.
Yeah, and Australia too, with like the rise of bands like, I mean, kind of apples and oranges, but like the metalcore and the pop punk scene are kind of have like their own little crossovers there. So like I figured with bands like Polaris, In Heart's Wake, and Stepson from New Zealand as well, it almost seems like there's like an oceanic pop punk scene on the rise.
Yeah, that totally is. I mean, the Australian music scene is both massive, but also like very small because we are such a small um, like population, I suppose. So like bands like Stepson that we have been friends with them for so long, like they definitely were more in that melodic hardcore scene for ages, but like we toured with them a bunch of times just because there is a lot of crossover because it's almost like there's not enough bands to have all the genres like subdivided. It's like if you want to go out on tour, especially when you're a young band, you kind of have to just go with who you can. So there used to be, especially a lot of very mixed bills touring the country, which was awesome. But yeah, so many bands like Polaris absolutely killing it. Like they're so big now in the metal
They
world.
just sold out the Gramercy Theater here in New York City, so it was insane.
Amazing. Yeah, it's so good to see, like, because they, yeah, absolutely deserve it because they're an incredible band. So it's awesome to see the Australian bands kind of like taking over the world. It's like the hometown pride, you know?
Yeah. Well, I've always said pop punk and metalcore is the greatest export of the UK because I've noticed that all the metalcore and pop punk capitals are either in Australia, Massachusetts, and now I'm hearing that there's a little bit of a scene in South Africa now as well. So I think it's
Right.
so
Oh, that's cool.
so I think the two next big metalcore and pop punk capitals are going to be India and South Africa.
That would be, yeah, that's really cool. Just, yeah, new scenes like coming through. That's awesome. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of, like obviously the UK music scene as well, just always kills it. Like I feel like there's such a solid scene there, especially in pop punk and stuff as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely cool to get to, you know, be involved in it in any way. And yeah,
Yeah.
very cool.
And the final question I wanted to ask you is having two albums and two EPs out now, do you feel that maybe the meaning or the context, kind of going back to the lyrical themes, does that maybe kind of like evolve over time? Would you say, does the music evolve with you as you evolve as an artist, or do you think that every song you make is almost kind of like just a moment in time, a representation of who you and the band were at that particular time?
Yeah, I think that's the way that I see it. Like, I can definitely see going back through our releases as a whole. Like, if I was to listen to, you know, one of our EPs and then the first album and then this album, can definitely see the evolution through like the songwriting and the lyrics and that sort of stuff. But I feel like if I look at each song individually, it's definitely always I can remember exactly sort of what was going on at that time and when it was written. Like it definitely is a bit of a snapshot of that moment in time and how I was feeling at that time, which it's funny sometimes listening back because it's almost like once you write it and you get it out of your system, like if it's something that's been weighing on you, it's almost like you can sort of move past it because you've expressed it and kind of got it out of your system. But then when you listen back, sometimes it's like, oh, I was really upset when that happened, you know, or like I felt this kind of way. And it's funny how you almost forget, but then when you listen back, it's like a little trip down memory lane of like this new album. When I listened through, it's pretty much like, because we started writing it in, I think late 20 or like mid 2020. So it's almost like I can sort of see it chronicles like almost the pandemic lockdown. Not that it's about lockdown, but just the way that I was feeling all through there up to like, you know, the last couple of songs that were actually written in the studio. So it is like a funny little sort of time capsule in that way, but it probably only makes sense to me because nobody else obviously knows exactly what, you know, what one person is feeling, but it is cool in that way to have those little moments in time kind of preserved forever and go back and listen to your own feelings.
Yeah, well, Fluorescence is definitely when I think of the final year before this COVID stuff. That is an album I listened to remember good times in 2019. So
Oh, well, that's nice. I'm glad it holds a special place for you in that way, and hopefully, the new one will chronicle the time post COVID.
right. Well, and that led me perfectly. Before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time. And just with the release of this new album, is there a chance you could finally bring Eat Your Heart out to the States? We would love to have you here.
Yes, we are absolutely working very hard on coming to the States as soon as we can. Yeah, we don't have anything we can share at the moment, but rest assured, it is definitely top of the priority list at the moment to get to the States as soon as possible and play a bunch of songs off Fluorescence and the new record. So hopefully we'll be there very soon.
I appreciate it. Well, thank you so much. Everybody, Eat Your Heart Out. Be sure to check out their brand new album, Can't Stay Forever, coming out September 9th. We will see you next time on Heavy New York.